Maya. I'm going to read you the passage out loud and then explain it briefly, and then I'm hoping you'll be able to do CR number 4. So here's the passage from Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Within the diamond haze of the beach, something dark was fumbling along. Ralph saw it first and watched till the intentness of his gaze drew all eyes that way. Then the creature stepped from the mirage onto clear sand, and they saw that the darkness was not all shadow but mostly clothing. The creature was a party of boys, marching approximately in step in 2 parallel lines and dressed in strangely eccentric clothing. Shorts, shirts, and different garments they carried in their hands, but each boy wore a square black cap with a silver badge on it. Their bodies from throat to ankle were hidden by black cloaks, which bore a long silver cross on the left breast, and each neck was finished off with a ham bone frill. Okay, so let's stop here for a second. They're on the beach. We don't know very much yet, but this kid, Ralph, sees a group of boys walking together, and he calls it a creature because they're all kind of walking together and they all look the same. So they're walking towards him, a bunch of boys, and they're dressed kind of strangely. They're wearing shorts, shirts, they're wearing a cross, black cloaks, a cape kind of, and black caps on their head, and they're coming towards him. Pay attention to how they're described. Let's keep going here. The heat of the tropics, the descent, the search for food, and now this sweaty march along the blazing beach had given them the complexions of newly washed plums. The boy who controlled them was dressed in the same way though his cap badge was golden. When his party was about 10 yards from the platform, he shouted an order, and they halted, gasping, sweating, swaying in the fierce light. The boy himself came forward, vaulted onto the platform with his cloak flying, and peered into what to him was almost complete darkness. "Where's the man with the trumpet?" Ralph, sensing his sun-blindness, answered him, "There's no man with the trumpet. Only me." The boy came close and peered down at Ralph, screwing up his face as he did so. What he saw of the fair-haired boy with the creamy shell on his knees did not seem to satisfy him. He turned quickly, his black cloak circling. "Isn't there a ship, then?" Inside the floating cloak he was tall, thin, and bony, and his hair was red beneath the black cap. His face was crumpled and freckled and ugly without silliness. Out of this face stared 2 light blue eyes, frustrated now and turning, or ready to turn to anger. "Isn't there a man here?" Ralph spoke to his back. "No, we're having a meeting. Come and join in." The group of cloaked boys began to scatter from close line. The tall boy shouted at them, "Choir, stand still." Wearily obedient, the choir huddled into line and stood there swaying in the sun. None the less, some began to protest faintly. "But Merridew, please Merridew, can't we—" Then one of the boys flopped on his face in the sand, and the line broke up. They heaved the fallen boy to the platform and let him lie. Merridew, his eyes staring, made the best of a bad job. "All right, then, sit down. Let him alone." "But Merridew—" "He's always throwing a feint," said Merridew. "He did in Gib, and Addis, and at Matins over the precentor." This last piece of shop brought sniggers from the choir, who perched like black birds on the criss-cross trunks and examined Ralph with interest. Piggy asked no names. He was intimidated by this uniformed superiority and the offhand authority in Merridew's voice. He shrank to the other side of Ralph and busied himself with his glasses. Merridew turned to Ralph. "Aren't there any grown-ups?" "No." Merridew sat down on a trunk and looked around the circle. "Then we'll have to look after ourselves." Secure on the other side of Ralph, Piggy spoke timidly. "That's why Ralph made a meeting, so as we can decide what to do." Okay. So in this passage here, we're on a beach. All these boys have been stranded. There's been some kind of plane crash, and they're on this island. They're all by themselves, and there's no adults whatsoever. So Ralph sees a bunch of boys coming towards him as he blows the conch shell. Kind of sounds like a trumpet. And the boys come, and they're dressed all funny in black capes and caps and all that because they're in a choir. They were at a choir practice or something. Maybe they were on their way to another country with their choir and the plane crashed. So they're dressed as a choir, and Merridew is the leader of the choir, and that's why he's ordering them around. In fact, a boy faints because he's been ordering them around so much and keeping them busy, and then he tells them that fine, they can sit down. All right, but we can tell in this passage that Jack Merridew is the leader of this choir, and what I'm asking you to look for is direct characterization, so things that the author tells us directly about Jack, and then indirect characterization, things that the author suggests about him. So his actions, his dialogue, things like that. So when you're writing your CR, you're going to separate it. You're going to give examples of the direct characterization of Jack Merridew, and then the indirect characterization of Jack Merridew, the leader of the choir, in this very short passage. So that's what you're focusing on. If that's still not making sense, let me know.